We did, however, get the KTM 890 Juke Launch. I think it's like 2 weeks ago now, but again, in an online event. So don't think any journalists got to ride it. We already knew this bike was coming from EICMA last year when it was announced, but this was meant to be like the launch where they get the journalists on it. Ducati managed to send them out just before the lockdown, their Street Fighter V4, and get people to ride them sort of around their local area rather than some fancy hotel in Italy and then some racetrack. KTM, they wouldn't have had time to get that sorted. And as a result, no one's ridden it, which is a bit of a shame. I'd love to see some first impressions of the 890.
Yeah, so would I.
You've ridden the 790, haven't you?
I have ridden the 790, yeah. And was it last year? Maybe last year, year before that. Of the bikes that I rode in the same year, it was one of the ones that stuck with me the longest, and definitely one of the ones that I will keep on my radar when they're secondhand and I can afford it and insure it, more importantly. I loved it. I love the 790. It's a little weapon.
Well, it's one of the kind of top middleweight bikes, one of the top rated middleweight bikes, but pretty much the gold standard for that class. Is 890 middleweight? I don't know. Kind of. It is nowadays. It's
starting to become that way because of restrictions and stuff. They get bigger and bigger. So yeah, I'm still classing it middle.
But yeah, in that kind of market, the benchmark is the Street Triple, which was updated for this year as well. So we thought we'd run through a bit of a comparison to see which we think will be the king of the middleweights. But hopefully by the end of the year, we'll get to ride one. I've ridden the Street Triple.
You did the RS, right? KTM. You did the Street Triple RS.
I went on.
Yeah, not the R.
Yeah. No, but we got stats for the R was only announced like this year. They did the RS last year. Yeah. So no one's really had a chance to ride that yet, I don't think. Anyway, we thought we'd rattle through. So let's try and decipher which of these we think is best. Twin versus triple. That's the headline. Which is your preference?
For me personally, I prefer... do you know what? I think I prefer a triple. I do like 3 cylinders and all that comes with 3 cylinders, which is basically usable torque wherever you are on the rev range. I love that. So I think I'd choose that.
The thing is with the triple is it's like a point of differentiation. It's something a little bit different and interesting. And the only place you could really get a triple cylinder, middleweight sports bike is Triumph or MV Agusta. But Triumph is probably the one that sells in bigger numbers,
Or Yamaha as well, I should say.
Yeah, that's in about the kind of right range. But they're less common, let's say, than a 270-degree twin, which are like everywhere now. Pretty much every twin is 270 degrees. Africa Twin, F850, GS, and then therefore what are the kind of new BMW F900, R and XR. All the Bonnevilles, the MT-07, and therefore the XSR, like they're everywhere. Pretty much all of them. The only one that I can think of is the Z650 Kawasaki. They've stuck with a 180-degree firing interval. Just like the ER6N that I used to have, which was a 2006, and it sounds rubbish compared to a 270. Yeah. So I don't know why they're just sticking it out.
No, they're committed to that. It's a bit of a pit pony, isn't it? The ER6N, same thing. I learnt on one of them as well. The instructor was like, it just does everything. It's kind of middle of the road. Nothing exciting, but it does the job.
You can have a bit of fun on them. But for that reason, I'd probably say I'm tending towards a street triple here because it's a bit of an X factor, isn't it? The triple.
A little bit. It's got a bit of a flute to it as well. I mean, don't get me wrong. The 790 that I went on it sounded so nice, and it had the aftermarket exhaust, I think, as well. And my close second to a triple, and it really is as close as it gets, is 2 cylinders. They're the two configurations that I like the most, definitely. And probably out of those twins, I do tend to prefer the parallel twin as opposed to like a V-twin, dare I say. But my favourite is 3 cylinders or 2 cylinders. 4 cylinders doesn't really get my sort of my pulse racing. I prefer that sort of setup. And both of them sound incredible as well. But if it was down to it and they were sat side by side, 3 cylinders tends to be what I go towards.
In a drag race, though, looking at the specs, they'll probably be pretty damn close. So 119 horsepower peak from the KTM, 121 horsepower peak from the Street Triple, although you do have to wring its neck a little bit more. But also their weight, 166 kilograms dry-ish each. So it literally could come down to, if that's dry weights, the oil capacity or something. Whichever one's got most fluids in is going to lose the drag race.
Well, yeah, you'd only fill it up with like a cup full of petrol and that's it. Don't go to the top of the tank, whatever you do. I think the Triumph has more fuel capacity as well. There's not going to be a lot in it. It is important to say the same thing for you. Differentiating sort of feature is that the triple, you would have to rev a little bit higher. I don't know off the top of my head what the gearing is like, what the ratios are like between the two of them, but that will make a huge difference as well, whether it's a closer gear ratio or not. But yeah, it's not going to be a lot, is it? It's going to be down to rider error, I think, if you're going to lose in a drag race. For
sure, and you do get a bit more torque, so real world, you're probably going to be a bit quicker off the line on the KTM. Bigger capacity, twin cylinder. So I think it's like 79 foot-pounds to about 56 on the Street Triple. So yeah, you'll definitely kind of feel that day to day. But in sort of drag race Santa Pod conditions, it's going to be a close run thing. Around a track as well, the specs are pretty similar, so you might get quite similar performance out of them. So they're both fully adjustable suspension. WP Apex on the KTM, and I think it's Showa
big piston on the front, I think, or at least maybe I'm thinking from the R, but yeah, it's adjustable.
Yeah, fully adjustable. I thought it was, when I rode it, the Street Triple RS was a great bike. You were saying on the 790 that you borrowed, it was not adjustable suspension, but...
Yeah, when it first came out, the one that because I took out the original 790 when they were like fresh out, and it wasn't adjustable. But even with it not being adjustable, it's set up so well, I mean, you wouldn't really notice. Obviously, you can change the preload if you've got a passenger on there, but besides that, you can't tweak anything on it. But I don't know that you ever would need to, because they have set it up really well.
Yeah, fair enough. Brakes are good on both bikes as well. M50 on the Street Triple, Stylemas on the KTM. Pretty much all bikes now come with Brembos, radial, monoblock. Like, I can't remember the last time I got a press release for a new bike and it wasn't that setup.
Yeah, when it's their bigger, when it's their sort of fancier version, especially on an R. And yeah, Brembo, I can't really think of that many other competitors.
It's not even like it's not like an advantage over your competitors anymore to release a bike with like good spec Brembos. Like, it's almost expected now that those would be the brakes on a new bike.
Yeah.
So like the Tiger 900, for example, goes right down. It goes from 13 grand for the top spec right down to the 9 grand basically for the bottom spec, and you lose some of the electronics and some of the extra features. The suspension gets cheaper, but on that base model, you still get Brembo Stylemas with braided lines and stuff.
Okay.
I don't know if they just can't be bothered to kind of like change it up. It's probably cheaper just to buy loads of Brembos at that scale.
Buy them for everything, yeah. No, you're right though. If I look at a bike and I read the specs and it says anything other than Brembo, I immediately sort of go, meh. And it shouldn't be that case, because there are other brake companies out there.
Used to be a perk.
It did, yeah.
Elsewhere in the rest of the specs, like, there's a little bit of here and there, but one of the major ones is there's an IMU with cornering, traction control and ABS on the KTM, but that's not on the Street Triple RS, which is quite surprising for a 2020 bike. And I think it's because it's on the Speed Triple that there's that, like, trying to keep a bit of differentiation between those two models.
Yeah, I don't think the Speed Triple sells as well either as the Street Triple. In fact, I'm pretty sure it doesn't, which seems like a shame, because the Speed Triple is a cracking bike. But maybe that just at least gives it something that you would buy the Speed Triple over the Street Triple.
Well, it's more like 13 grand, I think, for the Speed Triple
more
RS.
expensive as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there is that.
In terms of like an IMU though, and like a cornering, traction control and ABS, it's another thing like the Brembos, where it's like, I don't know, you kind of expect to see it on most bikes now, pretty much. They're becoming way, way more common. It's probably getting cheaper to make them and fit them. So I don't know if it's a bit disappointing not to see it on the Street Triple, but honestly, how many bikes have you taken out and tested that had it? And like, how many times have you actually experienced it? Like, when do you ever get to experience cornering, ABS and traction control on the road anyway?
Well, in all honesty, Rob, on somebody else's bike that I'm borrowing, probably not that often. I'm unlikely to push it to a degree where I would need traction control on a corner or, the ABS, cornering ABS. Hopefully, Jesus, if I got to that point, I would absolutely myself. But KTM don't tend to compromise on this. I think I said this to you before, right? Their race spec stuff, when you switch it on, it says ready to race, and they really genuinely mean it. They don't compromise on the intelligence and the brain of the actual bike itself. Have you seen the video as well? I'm assuming you have, of them testing the cornering, lean sensitive traction control and ABS. Because if you see someone actually use it and the difference that it makes going into a corner and cocking it up, if you ever did need to use it, I'd like to know it was there, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Like, it's not something you'll need every day, but yeah, it could. Where was that video? Maybe we'll post it in the group.
It is on YouTube, and I'll send it to you.
Sweet. Quick shifter, just to move it on. Standard on the Street Triple, not standard. You have to pay for it on the KTM. But other than that, I don't know if I felt like there was a great deal between it. It'll probably come down to a bit of like whether a person will buy one or the other. I think it really will come down to the engine, if you prefer a triple or a twin, but also the looks as well. Like, I don't personally think the 890 is a good looking bike.
Well, I know a lot of people who don't think the Street Triple is a good looking bike either. And I know a fair few people who think that both of them are ugly. So each to their own.
Well, you were talking about the Rebel earlier.
Yeah.
How it looks like it's shunted into something a bit. I've always felt like that a little bit with the 890. You see how the tank is like mounded up?
Yeah, it's super aggressive and super angular. It's definitely a little bit weird looking. I always thought the front looked like a wasp face or an alien, one of the two.
I think that's intentional, isn't it?
Oh, it's completely intentional, and they don't want everyone to like it because that makes a talking point, doesn't it? Because then you get people who you're at least going to pick a side. You either love it or you hate it.
Yeah, I suppose so. And then the orange as well is always divisive, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know if I could live with an orange bike.
They don't go quietly, them KTMs.
Yeah, exactly. I think, mate, looking at it though, which one would you go for?
Personally, which one would I buy? Same as you. Yeah. I like a triple. I think you get an awful lot with the Triumph. I also think that because it is at least a smidge cheaper, although not by a lot, you get an awful lot of bike for that money.
99 quid.
Yeah,
cheaper.
But so I said this to you, I think, before, and I will stand by this point. The RS, I don't think there's enough difference for me personally to go for the Street Triple RS over the Street Triple R, and the Street Triple R is coming in at what, 8,700, 900, something around that, under $9,000.
They made it cheaper, yeah.
And honestly, if we were out for a day's riding and our skill set was exactly the same, you wouldn't be losing me for dead on the RS and vice versa. They're pretty comparable. In a real world situation on a real road, you get more than you need with the Street Triple R, and it's a damn sight cheaper. I think for me personally, I would go for that over the KTM 890. Yeah,
you're not the only person. Like, a lot of people commented on my video about the Street Triple R, saying they just want the least tech and intervention. So you don't get like the TFT dash or anything. Everyone's like, why would I want to connect my phone to my bike? Why would I want like IMUs and all that stuff? I just want a fast, fun bike. Spend that money, whatever budget you have to make it from what I'm spending on it. Spend that on brakes, suspension, and the engine, and tires, I guess. The rest, I don't care about it. And I think people really like that Triumph built something that was like, seems like they're listening to some of the customers, because some people want tech and everything, and they're happy to pay for it. Some people just want it to be modern in terms of the components and stuff and the engine. But the rest of the kind of like gadgetry, a lot of people, I think they say, I go on my bike so that I'm like not on my phone. I'm away from all that.
I don't want to link it to the screen so I can see my texts pop up.
Valid
exactly. Point.
All right, I think that's a good shout.
So go on then, Rob, which one do you get?
I think on the face of it, the Street Triple, but I'm really hoping by the end of the year that this lockdown business goes away and I get a chance to have a go on the 890, and then maybe it'll change my mind. I'm open to it. I wouldn't say it's my like style of bike to look at, but It's all about the ride, I think.
Yeah.